turned a pair of thrifted cabinets into a plant shelf with a mini she shed. Here's how I did it. Hey, I'm Brienne, and I recently moved across the country, so I've been getting myself set up here in this new apartment. I didn't bring any furniture with me when I moved, so my first 3 priorities were getting a couch, check, getting my desk set up because I work remotely, stay tuned for that project, and getting some sort of shelf solution set up for my plant babies and all my garden supplies. I have these awesome windows here in my living room, and I knew that that's where I wanted my plants to make themselves at home. I took some measurements and determined that I had about 6 feet of floor space along the wall. I also had about 2 feet in height to get my plants up off the floor, but not get them too high up into the window that it would actually take away natural light from the room. I also wanted the depth to be no more than 18 inches, just because my desk is right here and I wanted to make sure that I had enough floor space to sit comfortably and also move around. My primary goals were to find something that would fit the space and look nice here in my living room, but also not cost me a lot. I was kind of on a budget. My original vision was a simple low shelf with maybe some bins and baskets. I was also willing to do a little DIY if necessary. Worst case scenario was going to be building something from scratch. To find something unique and ideally not spend a ton of money, I decided to primarily shop at thrift stores. This actually took me several weeks and a lot of different trips to different stores, but I got lucky one day when I was shopping at Urban Aura. I'd already spent several hours in this place, and I decided right before leaving to just do a final sweep around the furniture section. I spotted this pair of cabinets right as they had been placed on the floor, so I got a cart and loaded them up and headed to check out. Unfortunately, I don't have any footage of the moment that I saw these. There was just too much excitement, but here's a picture of them loaded into my car. I thought these were such a unique design, and I really loved the trim detail and the rattan on the doors. I believe these were the upper cabinets from a larger hutch unit, so their depth and their length worked really well, but they weren't going to meet my height requirement of 2 feet. I'd have to get some legs. Also, I think it would just generally be kind of goofy to have a set of short cabinets sitting flush to the floor, so legs were going to be required either way. I got onto Amazon and searched for some mid-century modern style legs. I was just looking for something simple. The set that I got were 6 inches tall, so these would bring up my cabinets just about the height I needed. Once they arrived, I noticed that the bolts were a little bit too long. The bottoms of the cabinet were about 3/4 inch thick, but these bolts were about 7/8, so I would have to trim them down. This ended up being probably the most difficult part of the project. I went back to Home Depot and ended up finding a simple metal saw, and this worked perfectly. I still had to file the sharp edges off of the ends a bit, but it was worth the effort. I also didn't want the bolts to go all the way through the cabinet, so I decided to trim them down to about a 1/2 inch. This would allow me to fit the hardware in flush to the unit and still thread in the legs for a pretty tight fit. This is not the type of furniture that you're going to be sitting on, so I wasn't too worried about the structural integrity of the piece. Next, it was time to mark out where I wanted these legs to go. I think I offset the holes about 1.5 inches from the edges, since I didn't want the tapered leg to sit flush against the edge of the cabinet. I also taped off my drill bit, this is at a 1/2 inch depth, to make sure that I wouldn't accidentally go all the way through the cabinet. From there, I added the hardware and screwed in the legs. I did this whole project on my living room floor. As you can see, a bunch of my plants are just sitting there on the floor, in desperate need of a proper home. Once the first cabinet was done, I repeated the same things on the other cabinet. I drilled the holes, dropped in the hardware, and screwed the legs in. As you can see, I didn't repair any of the scratches on the cabinet. This was the underside, so this part of the cabinet wouldn't really be seen. And the tops also looked pretty decent, plus they'd eventually be covered in plants, so I decided to save refinishing for another day. I don't know, the color of these cabinets has kind of grown on me, so maybe a simple scratch marker will do the trick if I really want to clean it up. After making some space, I figured out a good setup. Now, these cabinets don't have backs to them. In this case, it doesn't really matter because no one will see them, but maybe in the future I will add some backing just to make sure that supplies don't fall out. For now, it's just a matter of being gentle and conscious of how I put things back in when I'm done using them. At the time, I had this big gardenia that was just suffering along, and I figured it needed better light, so I tried to stick it right in the middle of this setup. Spoiler alert, I ended up getting rid of this gardenia after a while. It became a pain in the butt to just keep treating. I tried, I really did. but sometimes you just gotta know when to let go. From there, I added the shelves back in. These cabinets were missing some of the original pegs that would hold up the shelves, so I'd gotten new brass pegs that ended up being slightly too small for the holes. They did the job at least, and the shelves are sort of balancing well on them. Making those fit more snugly or finding the appropriate size will probably be another follow-up to this project. From there, I added all my garden supplies in, and this is how they turned out. My easy to reach cabinet has all of my primary go-to products. All my fertilizers, all of my treatment sprays, my yellow sticky traps, and my trusty soil moisture meter. The other cabinet holds all of my soils, any large bagged supplies, and any other tools like pruners and shovels. I filmed all of this months ago. This was maybe in August of last summer, so a month after moving in. This footage is old, so apologies for the low quality. Here's how it looks today. Overall, this is one of my favorite projects. It was super simple to pull together, and I'm actually really proud of it. I look at these cabinets every single day and think, dang, I was so lucky to spot those. I think they're so cute, and look, I know that this style is not for everyone. I don't expect it to be. I'm definitely going through a bit of a boho chic phase, if that's what you would even call it. But overall, these cabinets fit the color palette and general vibe of my living room. So what do you think? Should I strip them down and refinish them proper? You can also tell me whether you hated it or not, that's also fine. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future projects, and also stay tuned for that desk video. I took a curly maple slab and turned it into my standing desk. It was a fun project too. My soil moisture meter. I made this. I think that's good enough, right? Is that good enough? Can we be done here? Peace.